Welcome to the You Heard podcast with your hosts, Ben, Joe, and CP. We're here to cover everything related to Miami Hurricanes football, from hot topics to pre- and post-game analysis.
All right, we'll talk about it at the end. We'll talk about it.
No, let's talk about that right now because you completely flipped it on me now.
I hate him for knowing this, bro. This man knew the brand, dog.
Okay, I don't appreciate that. I'm saying, like, I don't appreciate.
What did you say? What are we talking about, man?
Get into our topic.
I feel keeping it a buck.
You heard?
Throw it up, Donno. Throw it up. Hey, yes, thank you guys for joining. Everybody, we appreciate you guys joining on this Wednesday night. You see him. If you don't know the face, you definitely know the voice. And if you've been living under a rock and you don't know who this is, Mr. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you.
Well, Joey, thank you for the kind intro. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm glad there's never a dull moment when it comes to following Miami Hurricanes football. There's always something going on, transfer portal, recruiting. It's a year-round sport these days. It's like, we always used to say this about the NFL, which is still true now, that it never really stops. College football's the same way now.
Never stops. Never stops. Listen, let me tell you guys something. Donno always shows up. Always. He was at both of our events at Caneswear. So he was at our very first one when we were nobodies. We're still nobodies, but he was at our very first one. He was there a couple months ago.
You guys are not nobodies, by the way. You'd be surprised. People know you guys.
Man, listen, and Donno always shows up, man. So again, we appreciate you. Appreciate you taking time out. One of my co-hosts, Ben, he's somewhere out there slacking. So I appreciate you.
No, I'm happy to be here. I didn't want to talk to Ben anyway. I wanted to talk to you.
Kane, Idaho, what's up, brother? Appreciate you. Think everyone else is bugging now. Wait till we're really back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This we're back stuff. CB. What's going on, brother? Star, thank you for joining, everybody. We appreciate you guys, man. So, Donno, you had a show recently discussing the media, not Miami media, but media outside of the Miami Hurricanes, spreading the narrative that Miami going to be back. They spread this narrative. We don't even talk like that inside the fan base. And we know that. What do you think? Why do you think is it? I have a theory that they want us to look silly. Like they don't like when we look. I think they think Miami's a brash fan base. They remember the Miami of the 80s, 90s, 2000s. They hate those teams. And they really don't want Miami back. What do you attribute that to? That narrative to?
What you said about about it being kind of deliberate to make Miami look bad, that tends to be my operating theory. I think that's part of the reason why that happens. I think another reason why it happens is it's also just lazy analysis, where it's like, instead of kind of really digging deep and looking at what Miami is trying to build, who Miami's brought in, it's like, oh, are the Canes back? Is the U back? And to be fair, Miami's not the only program that they sometimes do that with. I mean, obviously, Texas just had really good season, and the Longhorns got into the college football playoff last year. But for many, many years, when Texas was not doing so well, they were inconsistent. The media would kind of do the same thing, like, oh, are the Longhorns back? Is Texas back? And for a long time that they weren't. So they do a lot of that with Miami as well. But what I really took exception to in that article that raised that question, and they referred to it as an overreaction. Like they specifically referred to asking the question, is Miami back, as an overreaction.
Right.
Miami wasn't the only one of those that they did one for. Like ESPN has their they're way too early top 25, like preseason rankings are out, and Miami, they have them ranked number 24. And so they did an overreaction for all the 25 teams in there. And most of the overreactions that they posted were like kind of a negative thing that they refuted. Like for Florida State, it was like, oh, is the offense is gonna take a step back this year? Well, no, we think the offense is gonna be really good. Like Clemson,
Right.
is their offense gonna be terrible? No, you know what? I think they're gonna be really good. And then for Miami, it's like, is Miami back? It's like, hold on. So listen, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But you hit the nail on the head, Joe, when you're talking about people within the family. There are a few fringe guys. There's crazy people in every fan
Of
base.
course.
Like I hear from Gator fans who think they're going to go, 12-0 and win the college football playoff despite that schedule that they have.
Right.
So there are crazy people in every fan base, including Miami's. But for the most part, we're not like sitting in some back room like, oh yeah, 16-0 this year, we're back. No, everyone see it to believe it, right?
Absolutely.
Let down before. Maybe this time will be different. I'm sure other times are going to be different. So, lobbing that Miami is back narrative out there. You see what happens. Florida State fans, Gator fans, they see that and they're like, look at those idiots. Look at those delusional morons in Miami. They're saying they're back. Well, we're not really saying it.
No, not at all.
ESPN writer who covers Miami but graduated from the University of Florida. That's saying it. We're not saying it.
Right. CB says, I think they do want us back because college football needs a villain and a good one. When we're on top, we accept the villain role that's needed in storytelling. Yeah, I agree. I agree that I think it's good for college football when all the Florida schools are operating at a high level. That just makes the rivalries better. That makes the big three talk better. And it brings more fans to college football. When all three Florida schools are doing their thing, it's always good. Donno, I was watching your show a little early and my guy Bruce, man. I believe you asked the question, what does it look like when Miami's back, right? I heard his. Yeah, did you answer that question?
I didn't answer my own question.
Okay, let us. What do you think? What do you think it looks like when Miami's back? What does that look like for us?
I think the most important thing is, if and when, hope it happens in my lifetime, if you ever consider the U to be back, whatever that means, whether it be making a college football playoff run, winning the ACC, it's got to happen for multiple years in a row. Like it's got to be a sustained thing, right? Because back in 2017, we saw Miami, they started what was it? They started 10-0, and then they got to the ACC championship game. You were telling me off air you attended that game, unfortunately, where they got beaten, by Clemson after they had lost to Pittsburgh the week prior, and then they lost a bowl. It was a tough ending to that season, but they did win 10 games. So, but if anybody thought, Miami won double-digit games, they're back. They don't follow it up the next year, right? So, well, to me, like I wouldn't really say Miami's back until they win another national championship. At that point, I would say they're back. But then you also need to find some kind of sustained success. Like it's not, obviously, I'm not comparing the programs, obviously, but you see like a place like Georgia, they're building a dynasty. They built a dynasty there. Clemson had an incredible run of 5 or 6 years. Ohio State was up there, during the Urban Meyer years, especially like if you can actually start, and Alabama, I don't think Miami would ever. A 20-year dynasty is basically what the Crimson Tide had, or an 18-year dynasty. But if you can, start winning a championship, competing for titles, and do it for a sustained period of time, that's when I would consider the U to be back. Definitely.
And if you watch football, you can see who's up here and who's just regular, So even in 2017, when we won 10, we watched the games. We were the Georgia Tech win, the Florida State win, even though who cares how we won that game? That's a big one.
Right.
a lot of those wins were like, we were like, when we went into the Clemson, the ACC championship, I don't know that many fans were confident that we were going to win that game. I know I wasn't, but I
wasn't
happy
either.
Yeah.
I was hoping it would be more competitive than it was, but
yeah, definitely. So having sustained success is definitely a measure of being back. I think also when you can rotate coordinators like you do and still maintain the same system, same success, that's huge because Alabama, those guys, they lose coordinators every year, right? They go be head coaches, they go to the NFL or whatever. And listen, they keep the train rolling. So yeah, I think that's huge. Let me see. Melissa was saying something. Hoodie.
I love Melissa.
Miami is back when we win a natty, and in the world of social media, which we didn't have in 01, that ish will be bananas. Absolutely, Hoodie. Absolutely. It's going to be crazy. Listen, if Miami wins, a bowl win, a playoff, if Miami makes the playoffs, oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. It's going to be over, man. Because listen, if Coach Cristobal is recruiting the way he recruits now, 5-7, 7-5, 7-6.
Yeah.
Imagine 10-2 in a playoff berth. Goodness gracious. They're gonna have to keep people out. Like they're gonna have to,
right. Like Georgia. Like you see, it's funny because when you follow recruiting pretty closely, something you'll notice is like a lot of times you'll have a guy who talking like a 4, sometimes even 5-star players who are Georgia leans or even Georgia commits, and then you're like, oh, what? How come this guy went somewhere else, or how come this guy decommitted from Georgia? And it happens because they literally can't take everybody.
Right.
It's like people are fighting to get into that program.
Yeah, you think the numbers game is crazy now.
Yeah.
Imagine then. So listen, we got a couple of transfers, a couple portal guys in. Michael Barrow. That's funny. Simeon Barrow Jr. Deani Hill in the spring window, Deani Hill and Alderman. Right? Is that it?
Yeah.
Did we get somebody
Jalen
else?
Alderman, yeah.
Alderman.
And Damian Martinez.
Yeah, that's just the one. But out of the guys in the spring window, who do you think will have an immediate or can have an immediate impact? I mean, like from day one, August 31st, he's out there starting. And who do you think will be able to come in and get their snaps may increase throughout the year?
Yeah, there's a couple of them, of course, right off the bat. I don't have to think about too much. Damian Martinez, it would be shocking if he's not the starting running back to start the year, especially since we're not exactly sure when Mark Fletcher is going to be fully available. I don't know. I don't want to speculate one way or the other, but Damian Martinez is going to be Miami's starting running back. He'll have an immediate impact. Simeon Barrow is going to be an immediate impact guy. I expect he's going to be a starter in the interior of the defensive line. Obviously for anybody, you need to actually see how they practice a little bit. But to me, Barrow's got the goods. He played well in a power conference in the Big Ten. I see no reason why he wouldn't be an instant impact guy. Sam Brown as well. I think there's going to be a little. Yeah, I think there's going to be a little more competition there. So I definitely want to see him in person. But on paper, he's probably now your third best receiver. I emphasize on paper because I think Isaiah Horton's really good, and he had a really good spring. He doesn't have the stats that Sam Brown has, but he also hasn't had as many opportunities to play to this point as Brown has. So I think there could be some competition there. I think both guys would play, but Brown comes in with not only a good pedigree out of Houston, but also having played for Miami's offensive coordinator there and already knowing the offense. I'm sure it hasn't changed too much. Right. So I think that gives Brown an instant advantage. I think the one that I've definitely got to just kind of see him more and see how he fits with the other guys would be Deani Hill from Marshall, the cornerback. Right. It's a little bit hard, but again, he's got the comfort level with two of his coaches because Chevis Jackson coached him there, and Guidry was his defensive coordinator a couple of years ago. But obviously it's a little bit more of a jump, from Marshall to Miami, and Miami's got some good young corners. So he might be a guy who earns more reps. Like, it wouldn't shock me if he is day one starter. It also wouldn't shock me if he's a guy who has to work his way in a little bit. And then, the one that I think people are sleeping on a little bit, because Miami already has a lot of talent at linebacker, is Jalen Alderman. Whether he, I don't know if he starts over Besaint or if Besaint starts over him, but you're talking about a linebacker who started every game on a really good defense in the ACC last year. I mean, there are certain defensive metrics where Miami ranked higher than Louisville, but if you go just by like total defense or scoring defense, Louisville technically had a higher ranked defense than Miami, and Alderman was somebody who started every game there last year, and he played for your linebackers coach, D. Nick, a couple of years ago. So I think people are sleeping on that a little bit. Even if he doesn't start, he's going to play a lot, because, don't forget Miami, they had KJ Cloyd and Corey Flagg last year, who, both moved on, experienced linebackers who both got a lot of playing time. And, Miami's got some really good linebackers. Popo had a really good spring. Besaint had an awesome spring. And they did lose Marcellus Pulliam, but you got a couple good freshmen. I don't want to forget Bobby Washington either, as someone who's rising up that linebacker rotation. But a lot of these guys don't have experience, and Alderman's got a ton of experience. But I think, like, the two big immediate impact guys are Damian Martinez and Simeon Barrow. I think that these guys are players who are gonna. I don't necessarily know how many wins like each of them are worth, but you would figure I think Miami is probably maybe at least a win better after having added both of those guys.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, there were some players that, quite frankly, I was shocked that didn't transfer. I didn't want them to transfer, but I was shocked that they didn't. One player, I'm so glad he didn't transfer, is Chase Smith. I'm glad he's still there. Where do you see his role? What do you see his role being? Because obviously we have, Maui Noah in the middle.
Yeah,
we got Kiko in the middle. We have Besaint. Do you see a situation where both of them could be on the field at the same time, or do you just see him, rotating with Kiko in the middle?
Yeah, I think I probably see him rotating and rotating with a guy like Kiko. He doesn't take too many snaps off.
Right.
That's I would imagine, because I think this was the case last year. I want to say he led Miami in defensive snaps last year. Kiko did. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 90% sure. I know Cam Kinchins didn't, because he missed 2 games with concussion last year. He would have been right up there as well. But yeah, I mean, I see Chase Smith as a rotational guy. I know that some people were, maybe a little bit surprised at the Pulliam departure. But there was, but again, he was kind of in the same situation. It would have been a rotational role. But Chase Smith has a lot of potential. He's had injuries that have gotten in his way. Yeah. So I would love to see a guy like that, like, carve out more playing time. I would imagine he's going to play, a lot on special teams, which is not the most glamorous thing, but it's still, those are important snaps out there. So we will see. I don't necessarily see him, just in my opinion, in like the top, let's say 5 of the linebacker rotation. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but he'll be a rotational guy, if anything.
Yeah. Cause it seemed like, and we only got to see the spring game, right? So we didn't get to see practices, and in the spring game, he looked really good. He looked big. He's always been big, but he looked just bigger. And he was flying around the field along with all of the linebackers, really. Like, the linebacker room looked really good. There's a young guy out there, Mr. Pruitt.
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt, man. He definitely made a name for himself. I know you were at the practices. I'm sure I don't know how much you got to watch him, but do you think he's a guy that will increase his role this year and get on the field and get some snaps?
1,000%. I think he probably, as is the case for a lot of true freshmen, he probably needs a little more size, which he'll probably get, right? Because a lot can happen between now and late August. But Bobby Pruitt looks the part. I mean, he was one of those guys who you would see really stood out and popped a lot in practice. I can think of a few of the freshman defensive guys who fit into that category. The two guys from Alabama, like Cole McConaughey on the defensive line.
Yeah.
He is someone that, despite being a true freshman, his size really stands out. Like McConaughey is big. I had a chance to interview him a few weeks back, and like I know I'm going to get this wrong, but like I asked him his dimensions. I think he's in like the 260 range or something. Like I got to go back and watch my own interview to remember. But he is a big kid. He's a really big guy. And Zaquan Patterson at safety is one that I think can play a lot. But Pruitt to me, I saw some good stuff as well in practices from Darius Smith. So I think this is another reason why, again, we didn't necessarily know which guy would go from the linebacker unit, but why we weren't surprised that somebody left, because it's a deep room. It's one of the deeper rooms. And, in Miami's base defense, there's only two guys on the field at once. You're going to see that, manipulated in certain situations, but, there's only a certain amount of snaps, especially when Kiko doesn't take many snaps off. There's only a certain amount of snaps for a limited number of guys.
Right. Okay, listen, somebody decided to show up to work today. He just decided to pop in, all white.
Wearing a white shirt.
Benny?
Wearing a white shirt.
And
what's going on, Donno?
Hey,
Chad, look who's here. Ben.
Okay, here we go.
Ben's here.
Here we go.
Yes.
I'm here every Wednesday.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you? How you doing, Donno?
I'm doing well, man. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to be seen, man.
Thanks for popping in.
Yeah, no problem. I wore this shirt. I wore a white shirt on purpose because I know how personally you get offended by white shirts, Joe. So I wanted to make sure you saw.
My computer just doesn't like them. It just goes crazy, and I don't know what it is. I think it's really personal. I think it has to do with me. So
yeah, it is.
Whatever.
It's a drink.
You got the white hat too. Like, did you just come from? Well, I know you didn't just come from a Heat playoff game because they're not in the playoffs anymore. But
this was all purchased at Into the Canesverse when we were down for spring game.
Yep.
Yeah, this is
And he's a very.
I bought a lot of gear that day too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kept shopping, Donald. You stopped.
I had two different waves of shopping. Like I did a round of shopping at the beginning, and then I did another round at the end.
Yeah, I noticed this guy just got bags. Like Lockdown is doing well. That's fantastic.
Yeah. That's what we got to do. Listen, Donno, on the O-line, right? I would say 3 to 4 of the 5 are pretty set. I think we have them locked in, right? We got Jalen Rivers at left tackle. We got Carpenter at center, I believe, right? Inez Cooper at right guard, and Mr. Mawanoa at right tackle, right?
Yeah.
Left guard. What do you see happening there?
Yeah, it was a weird one, and it's hard. Like if we're trying to get the clues based on Alex Mirabal, because he's a little bit of a mad scientist. He likes to rotate guys around. Like at a certain point, let's say midway through spring practices, a little bit past that, we kind of thought we had it figured out. Like it looks like Pancake Honcho he might be trending to be the starting left guard. He started trending that way, and then a little bit later on, we started to see Pancake getting a lot of first team reps at right tackle, and that's where he played mostly in the spring game. So then, okay, maybe we didn't have it figured out, and then maybe Matthew McCoy might end up being the starting left guard. And a lot of people are freaking out because, like, for the first week and a half of spring ball, Lou Cristobal was getting a lot of reps at left guard, and the fan base felt a certain way about that. But so I could look at it a couple of different ways, like maybe and Matthew McCoy is an excellent player. He may be the starting left guard. Honcho Okunlola may be the starting left guard, or I wonder, and I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily root for this because it involves like multiple changes, but there is a theory that maybe they try to move CC Maui Noah to left guard to start there, and then have Okunlola start at right tackle, which would hypothetically make your starting offensive line, like you said, the guys who are set, like Jalen Rivers is your starting left tackle. I believe Zach Carpenter's your starting center, and Nez Cooper's your starting right guard, and then maybe you move CC to left guard, and then you have Okunlola start at right tackle. The reason why, I don't know, that wouldn't be like my first idea, because that involves like multiple different changes rather than just plugging in one guy. But at the same time, if something like that were to happen, I wouldn't doubt Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal's judgment on that, because they have these guys cross-train a ton, where most of them are pretty comfortable playing multiple positions. There are just certain guys who maybe the body types would lend them more to be a tackle. Like that may be the case with Okunlola, but I also think he can play guard at a high level too. So I don't know. I would imagine that you wouldn't change too much for the sake of change. So maybe 4 of those 5 spots are set, and then maybe it comes down to either Okunlola or McCoy at left guard. And I wouldn't sleep on somebody like Tommy Kinsler either, who I think at the worst case scenario, he would be like one of the next guys, or one of the first 2 guys off the bench, and play a rotational basis as well, because he looks good and he looks big.
With Tommy, with Tommy, I see him as like the future Ines Cooper replacement. I kind of see him sliding into that position next year once Coop leaves, because Coop is going to leave, right? Like, hopefully he doesn't, because I like continuity, but Coop might bounce. What do you think about that 6'9", 6'10" monster that we got, the JUCO young man? Can't even say young, because he's big. Like, when he's in his stance, he's taller than everybody else, and I've never seen anything like it. I never got to see like I'm saying, like Mount McKinney. And it's like at the field with my guy. Is that man huge? I think he needs to be out there. I can see CC in the guard position.
Yeah, Markel Bell. Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up, because this is another one where it's like he could also be one of the first 2 guys off the bench if he does the start. And he got a lot of just height wise, he might be as tall as Bryant McKinney is and was here as well. I don't know if he's got quite as much of the girth, but he looks impressive on the field. Like, anytime I was there, I would see Bell just towering over everybody, and I'm like, wow, he looks like the mountain from Game of Thrones. This guy's gigantic. And he looked like technique wise, like he's looked good from everything we could see. It's harder, like in spring ball, obviously it's harder to judge like the sheer physicality, because we don't get to watch as many of like the 100% reps in the trenches, because a lot of times that was in the parts of practice that we were not able to watch. We only get to watch about a third of practice, and it's a lot of non-contact drills until the spring game, when they move a little bit more. But Bell looks good to me, and I got to see him do some like one-on-one technique work with Coach Cristobal, and he seemed really into it. So I think that's another one. And you see, like, Miami recruit so many big, tall offensive and defensive linemen. Like, they have Anthony Campbell on the other side of the football on the defensive line, who's like 6'7", and Bell is 6'9". So I'd love to see him be a factor and get some playing time, and I think he will.
Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario in which Maui Noah moves inside. I could definitely see that. Not last year. I didn't think he was going to move inside, but I thought this year he might have moved inside with the addition of Markel Bell. But yeah, I think Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal have a lot to play with in there, and they'll be able to put something together. Flo, what's going on?
Flo in the building.
Love that dude. Hey, Flo.
One of the OGs.
Right, let's go into this Canes we're at. We'll be right back with you. Oh, that's not it.
No. Wrong one.
Welcome to Caneswear. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, Caneswear has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. Caneswear, the spot Miami fans shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost, messed up the house there, man.
Hoodie Girl says we almost
right.
You almost started the show again.
Yeah, I may have to. You know, Ben, you got any questions for Donno before we start this little game we got about to
Nah,
start up?
let's jump right into the game, man. Me and
Okay.
Donald talk all the time. I like to ask questions to Donald offline and just pick his brain. I'm saying he's our Yoda, man. He's like our mentor. Donald was one of our first guests right after Alonzo Highsmith, man. So yeah, he's family.
How did I fall? How did I fall? If I knew you just had Highsmith on, I would have. Let me wait a couple weeks. I would have said.
Listen, no, you were. I mean, you were one of the ones, Donald. Like I told you the first time, right? Like I feel like I grew up listening to your voice, but you're somehow younger than me. So it's like you narrated my fandom into this Kane stuff, man.
I started young. What can I say?
Yeah, you did. You did.
All right,
what are we doing this week, Joey?
Listen, the narrative is that Miami's back, right? We're gonna win 10 plus games. We're going to the ACC championship. We're definitely going to the playoff. So, Donno, what side do you want to be on, Donno? Do you want to tell us why we will or why we won't win 10 games, win the chip, and go to the playoff?
I'd actually prefer to be on the won't side of it, the devil's advocate side, especially since I'm very much in the camp of, as much as I'm really excited about what they're doing and I believe in the program building that's happening, I still like I need to see tangible proof on the field. So I will take the won't side.
Okay. And I'll take the will. Ben, you can add or chime, whatever side you want to. You can, you can chime in.
Devil's advocate on both sides. I got you.
Yep. All right, Donno. Why won't Miami win 10? Why won't we make the ACC championship? Why won't we make the playoff?
First things first, I'm very much a believer in even in this day and age of transfer portal, learning how to win and incremental progress. I mean, last season when Florida State, they were not unconquered, but they did go 13-0 before they went 13-1. I know that their fans like to pretend that the bowl game didn't count, right? They made rings, they're unconquered or whatever. But that was an incremental build. I mean, what did they have? Like 9 wins the season before, and they put themselves in a position to be the ACC champs the following year. I could see a scenario like that for Miami. We're still in certain spots, and this is obviously pending maybe another transfer or two coming in. I think that there could be a few weak spots depth-wise in the defensive backfield, which could cost you against certain teams and certain quarterbacks on the schedule. I also, you have to wonder in certain close games, are there going to be coaching snafus, timeouts left on the table? Those are the sort of things where when you're talking about a team that's trying to get into a college football playoff and trying to win the ACC, every down's going to matter, right? I mean, the difference between winning 11 games or winning 10 games could be, what decides whether you make the college football playoff, because they're not going to be like, I don't think the selection committee is going to be racing to give, an ACC team with 2 losses an at-large bid. Probably going to have to be a 1-loss team at worst. So, again, like I'm playing devil's advocate because I think it's the more sensible side here. That I really think that Miami's offense is going to outscore a lot of people, and I do have faith in what Lance Guidry can scheme up on the defensive side of the ball. I'm glad Miami has really shored up their line of scrimmage, but I think in the point of a lot of the players here have not experienced that sort of success. They may need to kind of take a year where maybe they win 9 or 10 games this year and kind of set themselves up for a better position in 2025. I think there's going to be, I don't know if it's a baby step, but I think there's going to have to be a first step that is taken before we're talking about 11, 12 wins college football playoff. I think Miami can get very close to that, but I think it's likely they're going to be just short of that.
Okay. Before we get to Joe's why will they, Andrea Adelson just kind of brings this up every year or two, right? Is Miami back? It's like she just has that in the notes. It's like, hey, is it back? We never say it. You've never seen, heard, read any of us real fans be like, oh, Miami's back. Then it's the offseason. We don't know what they're gonna be. I listened to your show earlier. I was like, and this is just all she does. I don't know how many times I've seen that headline in my life. Is Miami back? Is Miami back?
It's in drafts just for every. Oh, is it May already? It's time to click send on that.
Yeah, there's no Chat GPT with that. It's just already written because it recycles and it just updates, just changes names and coaches. All right, Joe. So for you, Joe, why will they make the big leap forward and you start drinking the Kool-Aid?
All right, before I start, 87 in the chat, man, please hit the like. We appreciate you guys. And like Ben just said, Kool-Aid, this is water. Kool-Aid will not be in anywhere in my home. So I'm going to preface my statement by saying that, okay? This is not a Kool-Aid. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. But football has been the same since it started, right? Even the changes with the spread offenses, the way people play, the rule changes, et cetera, et cetera. There are things that hold true, right? You have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to protect the quarterback on offense. On defense, you have to be able to stop the run, and you have to be able to get to the quarterback. In the ACC, it's not. It's not. It's absolutely not. Not in here. My wife would like it in here, but not in here. In the ACC, I feel like Miami will run the ball the best. I feel like Miami will protect its quarterback the best. I feel like Miami will be at the top in stopping the run. I feel like Miami will get to the quarterback the best. I feel like we have the best pass rush in the game. In the conference. So all of those things travel. They travel wherever you go. If there's an issue and it's a close game, your run game should be able to get you over the top. The fact that you can stop the run, the fact that you can get to the quarterback should be able to push you through in those close games. Now, the coaching staff has to do their job, right? So we have to be able to trust that the coaching staff is going to make the right decisions so those things can take shape. So I just think in the trenches, Miami is, I'm going to keep it a buck. In the trenches on both sides, I think Miami is really starting to position themselves to be dominant in the trenches. Now, Clemson on that defensive line is crazy. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to that. Their defensive line is out of control. But other than Clemson, I think Miami's D-line is crazy. And I think that's going to be the reason why Miami wins 10 games or more, is because of the trenches on both sides. And when all things are equal, you have a quarterback that we have. That quarterback that we have is going to account to me for at least 2 more games. So that's my reasoning right there.
I think you talked me into it.
Right. Yeah, he's very good at that. He's very good. Like he's the guy that like, oh, I don't drink Kool-Aid, but then he starts talking like, and we might win 11. Like, we might just, this is it. All right. So Donald, follow up. While they won't. What are the challenges you see that would stand out the most in keeping us from winning those games? As far as the defensive side, where are our weakest links that we're like, oh shit, they really got to tighten up here?
Yeah, and it's really just relatively speaking, just there's a little uncertainty. I think in the defensive backfield, like beyond Daryl Porter, and I think Mish Powell is really good. I think I'd rather know exactly who's going to start at the nickel, so he doesn't have to, because he might have to start there. But again, like I don't want to disrespect any of the younger players who have opportunities to step up, because I've seen Jaden Harris, do pretty well. He played in a lot of games. He started 2 games last year, so maybe he's ready to take on a much bigger workload. Same thing with Markeith Williams. I think Zaquan Patterson can shock some people as a true freshman this year. I think he's ready to step up and make some plays. Damari Brown, I think there's going to be a lot of responsibility on his shoulders heading into his second year, but it's just not a whole lot of experience, guys. Like, not a lot of proven commodities there. So I think Miami is going to for better or for worse, hopefully for the better, they're really going to rely on, their front seven or front six. I think they're really good. I think they've got a lot of good defensive linemen and linebackers. So it might work out. But again, I talk about incremental improvements, and Miami's schedule, I'm not saying it's a hard schedule, but again, if I'm talking about a team from the ACC to win the ACC, obviously you're going to have to, potentially beat Florida State twice, or, maybe beat Clemson in the championship game. You don't play in the regular season. Like, it's not going to be easy to win the ACC. And then if you're trying to get like an at-large college football playoff bid, they're not going to be lining up to give like a 2-loss ACC team a playoff bid. So I think the margin of error, even to get a top 12 seed, is pretty difficult. And, the Florida game to start the year, it's super interesting. I think Miami can and should win that game. Hopefully we'll win that game, but first game of the year, a lot of new players. Like if there are any, growing pains, because you're not playing FAMU in the first game, you're playing Florida at the Swamp in the first game, difficult place to play. If they get through that game victorious, I'm going to feel like that's like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Like, okay, now I really think this could be something special. Because really outside of that, outside of the usual trap games, because every ACC game has been a trap game for Miami historically, they're going to have a better team than most of the opponents on their schedule. I don't know, though, if they have a better team than Florida State. That Florida State defense is really good. You do get them at home, which is nice. Louisville on the road. I know a big story in the transfer portal has been like all these guys who are transferring away from Louisville. I think they do have a really good team. They've got some question marks, though. Like their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, is hurt all the time. Like he's really good when he's on the field, but I don't know if he's ever played more than 7-8 games in a season. So there's some question marks there, but you lost to them at home. You play them on the road this year, and then you can't slip up against, like, you got Syracuse on the road at the end of the year, and
I hate that game.
Is that at home? I think it's on the road, right?
On the road.
It's the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's so. It's just you've got to be virtually perfect, and I just think Miami might be a year away from that. At the same time, though, if I can get on Joe's side of the fence for just a second, I do have a lot of faith now in the quarterback running back combo. I mean, sure. Cam Ward is, I think he's the best quarterback Miami's had in a very long time. Damian Martinez, probably the best running back Miami's had in at least 8 years, going back to when Mark Walton had a 1,000-yard season back in 2016. So they're definitely, and you got Cam Ward here for 1 year. They want to go all in for that dude, and I respect it. And I think they can win a lot of games this year. I'm just skeptical that they can go from 7-6 to like 11-1 playoff in 1 year. I think they're just, somebody in the chat referred to stepping stone. I think that this year might be a stepping stone. It might be a very big step, but I don't know if they'll be able to get to the top.
Yeah, as easy as this schedule seems, next year's schedule is the complete opposite. Next year's schedule, like the first 4 games, I don't think we play a bad team in the first 4. So we got to take that step now, especially for recruiting. All right, Joe. Obviously, the chat is giving Crystal Ball a hard time about the coaching decisions he's made on the day of, stuff like that. But we're not going to talk about that. That's been rehashed and talked about in all our 140 episodes. We've been here the whole time. We lived it with y'all. I will ask you, in those games that we start out sluggish, right? Virginia Tech on a Friday night, a USF at their home when they're thinking they're something special, when they're ranked in the hundreds in most categories besides offense. Just keeping it honest. I look at rankings.
Listen, this Drake and Kendrick has this guy on another different level. I've been very disrespectful. Since that started, he's been going at everybody. He's been firing.
But I use facts with it. In those games, right? This is a relatively young team and got some transfers that are mostly the upperclassmen and transferred in leaders. Who do you think in the games where we're sluggish are going to be the ones to grab face masks and be like, "Yo, let's tighten up and let's finish this the right way"? Because that's what we've been lacking, right? That's the thing we've talked about since we started the show.
Yeah, I definitely think Cam Ward is one of those guys, man. He's a vocal, outgoing leader. We met him. He's conversationalist, easy. Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing? You know, easy. He's the unquestioned leader in that locker room, really. So I
So
think
confident.
yeah, definitely. I think Cam Ward
and
is one of
he's
those
really
guys.
sorry to interrupt you, but he's just like to what you're saying. He just seems like an incredible person because he's one of those people, and it's not in like a phony Al Golden sort of way. It seems like legitimate that when you talk to him, like you feel like you're talking to somebody that's known you for years. Like he just kind of he really cares what you're saying, and like hearing some of his teammates tell the story of he gets to Miami back in January, and you basically meet like more than 90 people, your teammates, because you include walk-ons or whatever. Like you meet like more than 90 people, and then the next day you remember everybody's name, which like if I met 90 new people, I'd probably remember 5 or 6 names the next day. Like he seems like a remarkable, 100%. Genuine guy.
Yeah, man. And having that
his family is too. His family is too, by the way.
Having that leader is vital, man. Like your team takes on the personality and persona of the leader. Like it's fact in any team, whether it's a family, whether it's at work, whether it's football, whatever sport, your leader is vital. So Cam Ward being a leader, Coach Cristobal being a leader, Coach Beard, all those coaches in there, man. But on the defensive side, grabbing face masks. Ruben May's not that type of guy. I know he doesn't like to lose, though. He doesn't like to lose, though. So it'll definitely be on his face. But I think man, I don't know. I don't know on that D. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see what's going on that defense, man.
I think it might be Wes. Wes was talking at the spring game to Cam.
He was. But playing football, man, you kind of have to earn that piece of it to be able to grab, to be able to get in people's face. You have to earn that. Not saying Wes hasn't earned it, but from an on the field standpoint, an accolade standpoint, Cam Kitchens can do that, no doubt. His name is in the rafters. You know what I mean? He can do that. On defense, I don't know if we have that person yet. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't know.
Kiko. I think Kiko.
Maybe Kiko. Yeah, maybe Kiko.
Numero uno. The numero unos.
I don't know if that's his personality either. So I don't know. But yeah.
Someone was on. Usis don't tend to be that aggressive with it, but it's like when you mess with their family, they'll put you through a wall. Yeah. But it gets different. Because I lived in Hawaii, I've seen it. I've seen it happen. It's a very terrifying thing when guy was standing there, now he's through a wall. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know on defense who would be that guy because it's a lot of young guys in transfer. So how hard is that to balance? Donald, we'll jump back to you. Like as a transfer, and you talk to these guys all the time, see them around. How is it to like ingratiate yourself on the defensive side to be a leader because you're like a 4th or 5th year guy, but now you're in a whole new setting, but you're expected to come in right away like a Simeon Barrow, come in right away, start and contribute and dominate. How hard is that?
I don't think it's as hard as people think, as long as you're a hard worker. Because I think one of those things in this day and age, when you're a Miami player who's heading into your 2nd, 3rd, 4th year at Miami, new guy with a hot reputation comes in. I think that as soon as and these guys they're working all the time. I mean, even when they're not practicing, they're like I was watching Armando Blunt doing sprints in the indoor facility a couple of days ago. These guys are all like Cam Ward practically lives in the facility, and Kiko was the same way when he came in last year. So I think as long as when you come in, as long as your teammates see, okay, this guy's not really Hollywood, like he's here to work, he's putting in the work, he's competing in the weight room, competing on the field. I think you can earn respect pretty quickly. Like as long as you're not a bad person, like and I think if you are like a bad person, I don't think the staff is going to really bring you in to begin with, because they're usually pretty careful with the type of personalities that they recruit. Because I know, one of the things that some of the players like joked about, because they look back positively. I think, Ward, to use him as the example, earned the trust of his teammates pretty quickly. Like at least 1 or 2 players said, like, found out pretty quickly this guy's not Hollywood. Like, this guy is not, he's not here to be a diva. He's not here for the glamour and, just the NIL and all that stuff. Like, he's actually here to work, and he's here to be a Cane. So I think as long as you have that sort of Miami attitude, and I don't feel like Cristobal should be recruiting guys who don't, and I don't think he recruits guys that don't. I think you can be you can create that chemistry with your teammates pretty quickly. But it's more complicated than it's ever been, though, guys. I mean, you're talking about like literally dozens of players going out and coming in every single year. It's just the way college football is now. I mean, outside of Clemson, it's basically happening everywhere. They don't bring in transfers. Everybody else does to a certain degree. But as long as you're here to work and you have the right attitude, I think you can be trusted pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So you guys on?
I agree. Where are we at? Almost at an hour. Listen.
Almost at an hour.
Yes.
I have a question for Donald that I need to ask since he sent somebody else. Real quick. Sorry. Gotta ask for own personal. Don't worry, nobody's watching. Who was more fake, Manny or Golden?
You
don't have to answer if you don't need. If you have to see him on like Duke Media Day, I understand. He might see this. Don't worry, he'll forget. There's all the gel. But besides that, I'm just curious. You don't have. I'm just wondering.
I don't know. They were pretty different. I don't know. I'm gonna plead the fifth, and it's not because I'm afraid to answer the question. I'm gonna plead the fifth only because I was actually around Golden more than Diaz, and I don't know if that would cloud my judgment in a positive way or a negative way, but I can
empirical versus anecdotal. I'll give you that.
Yeah, right. They were both not successful head coaches here. I think that's it's a results oriented business, right? I think that a guy like I've never covered him personally, but Brian Kelly seems like a pretty fake guy, and he's done some winning in his career. So you don't necessarily
accent, right?
have to. Yeah, right. My family, we love it here in Baton Rouge. Like, you had a Boston type accent a week ago. What's going on, Coach? Like, you don't have to be the most genuine person to be a good coach. But I think the most important thing was neither Golden nor Diaz were successful here.
Absolutely. I just have to ask. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. What are you gonna say?
Nah, man, Donno, give us before we get out of here, man. Give us your season. How do you think it's gonna play out? How do you think the season is gonna play out? August 31st. We're in the swamp. What do you think happens there? And how do you think the rest of the season plays out? And do you think the rest of the season will play out depending on the first game? Like, will that affect the rest of the season?
Yeah, like I don't, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And I know, like, it wasn't the first game last year. I think it was the third game. But a lot of people thought, like, when Miami beat Texas A&M and they looked pretty good doing it, a lot of people thought, okay, this team can really make some noise. But then that game didn't really seem to have any bearing on the rest of the season. So I look at that Florida game as like a 1-game season, and I think Miami comes away with a W in that game. I don't think it's going to be as easy as like some of our fans think it's going to be, because again, it's first game of the year in a tough environment. I think Miami is going to maybe be trailing early in the game and have to just sort of just kind of play their way into the game and maybe look a little disorganized at first, and then kind of find their footing, because I think Miami's more talented. I mean, I think that the Gators are a little suspect on the offensive line. I think Miami's got the pass rushers to create some havoc there. I think Miami's passing game can find some success against the Gators secondary. And if they don't, I look at, was it Ray Davis, the Kentucky running back who ran for like 600 yards against them last year? Maybe Damian Martinez has. Yeah. He's still running. Maybe Damian Martinez has that sort of game. So I think Miami's got enough talent to overcome Florida. I think maybe they might trail at halftime and then come out with a great second half. And then, I think that the two games outside of that one, which can be a tricky game, I think Miami wins. I'll be very nervous and anxious heading into the Florida State game, even though it's at home. It's going to be a tough game, no question. think Louisville on the road is going to be tough. And then I think Miami probably wins one out of those 2 games. But then, guys, I dread, somebody from the ACC that you don't expect just always finds a way to sneak one over on Miami. I know like some people think USF might be. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think you're probably going to lose like an ACC game that you're not expecting to lose, and then you'll probably lose one of the Florida State or Louisville games. So I'm looking at and I'd be very happy with a 10-2 regular season. I would be very happy with that. I think anybody who's not is deluded. Like if Miami were to win 10 games, and some people would be like, because I get this one guy who I don't know if he's a Miami fan or if he's like a Russian bot or something, but he comments on like almost every Locked On Canes YouTube, and he always says anything less than 11-1 is fireable for Mario. I get this comment almost every day. Anything less than 11-1 is fireable. I think that's one of the more insane opinions out there. I think we should, if it is 10-2. Hurricanes fans should be thrilled with that. So I see a 10-2 regular season. It's hard to predict the ACC championship game. So about 10-2 regular season. Hopefully a bowl win or find a way to sneak into the playoffs. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I got nothing else. No, Donald, thank you so much for joining us, man. 110 people in the chat. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Give us your 5-star reviews wherever you get your podcast. And make sure to check out the website, youheardpodcast.com. We may have something dropping today. Keep your eye out on that. Donald, thank you so much. Radio legend, one of our mentors in this game. Thank you for joining us, man. And we'll have you back on probably before the beginning of the season so we can get our final prediction.
We should. Right, I need to bring you guys both on as well. I had one time Ben showed up and Joe couldn't make it.
In my car.
We'll have to bring you guys both on.
Absolutely.
Don't shame me. Don't shame me. I will be there next time. Whenever it is, I will be there.
Awesome.
All right, guys. You guys have a great day, and we're out of here.
Thank you.